and the U.S. has already been to Venezuela, has already captured a foreign dictator, has already um, had allegedly, but maybe not, taken measures against another foreign country of Iran. And so between silver prices and cryptocurrencies and many people, millions of people coming to Jesus Christ in other nations, including Nigeria, Iran in particular, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and here in the United States, there's definitely a lot going on. Definitely a lot going on. And it is exciting. That's why we have to stay, if you're a Christian, stay prayed up. If you're someone who's just coming on this channel and you just found us randomly, just keep your eyes open and your heart open to just new information. Because particularly today, we're going to be focusing on crypto, oil, and understanding XRP, particularly XRP. And there's so many videos out there, people who are just very much locked in. Like all they do is day trading. All they do is they focus on the markets, and they kind of miss people who are just trying to get information and just trying to learn, and I think that there's a time and place for people who are seriously in the weeds of cryptos, in the weeds of financial markets, because this is the future. This is where, even as a Gen Z, young 20-year-old or a teenager, that you have to start looking into. But what we want to do here today at Fight Like Heaven is we really want to take a more of a 1,000-foot view and give some basic understanding of what are we talking about when we talk about cryptos, what are we talking about when we talk about the money markets, right? And specifically XRP. And when we do that today, I think it's going to be very beneficial. I think you're going to be, pretty excited, pretty encouraged by what you hear here on this stream. So we're going to go in and kind of look at what is cryptocurrency, right? Cryptocurrency is not something that everybody just innately understands. But cryptocurrency is a type of digital virtual currency that uses a process called cryptography for security, unlike traditional money or what we call fiat currency. It's the money that you and I use every single day for every single transaction, cash, US dollars. Every other country has their own form of currency that is called fiat. And we'll not really get into what fiat really is, but we'll have to touch on it initially. So like the US dollar, like euros, you go to Mexico, you have the peso. It's something that is used by the central government. So the government says, hey, we are going to distribute printed dollar bills, and you're going to agree with us that this is a form of currency and has value. In reality, money has value because people all believe it has value. When you were a kid, you picked a penny off the ground and you probably said, oh my gosh, this is great. This is amazing. I can't do anything with it because when we were kids, I'm 34, but I couldn't really do anything with a penny. Back when our grandparents rather, were kids, you could do a lot with a penny. You could buy that piece of bubble gum. You could buy, certain small items. Nowadays, that value of that currency has actually dropped in value through a process called inflation. And we're not going to get into every economic term. I just wanted to really focus on XRP, but you kind of have to have an understanding of what currency is, because we all just are born into this world and we all understand from a very young age that it has value. We're always taught that circumstantially in school, things of that nature. So yeah, we currently have a system that's built on this concept of fiat currency, which is not something that has always been the system in place, but it is a system that we've known for like the last 50 years. Prior to the 20th century, every single country's sole identity in terms of how much their country is affluent, how much, they value themselves in terms of the global perception was based on how much gold reserves that you had. Gold was a standard of understanding if you as a country were wealthy or not. So countries, if they had gold hidden under the earth, they would mine that gold and say, hey, this is our money. And also other nations would essentially barter and trade for that gold in order for them to have their own stockpile. And so currency has changed in the 20th century to go from a gold-based system to a series of what they call centralized banks, every nation having what they deem as a federalized or one central bank that really controls the money supply and really dictates certain principles of how that money moves around, including interest rates. Interest rates is how much money is going to have to be returned on an investment. So if I gave you $5 and I said, in 60 days, give it back to me, but you owe me $5.20. That interest is that percentage that I would owe you because of the passage of time. And that's really how banks really make their money. It's all about lending money. It's all about debt. Without them doing this sort of process of debt and interest rates, they would have really no ability to grow their stockpile of currency that's circulating through their bank. But that we're talking about small banks and then the central bank that controls the flow of money. And so we're not going to get into a history lesson, but I just, that real concept of what is the state of currency and what is this concept of interest rate is very, very very, very, very basic. And someone with, a master's degree in economics could get into a lot more nuance than myself. But this is our system. We're in 2026, and we're actually at this precipice that is very interesting. We have a president, Donald J. Trump, who for decades has actually said in many speeches, let's end the Fed. Let's end the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is our central bank of the United States of America. And again, every country for the most part, except for, interesting, Venezuela, years ago, Libya, the different countries for the most part have a central bank. But over the last 20 years, 30 years, countries that just didn't want to have their own fiat currency, they wanted to be gold backed. They wanted their country to be not associated with this interweb of international affairs where other countries' currency values would dictate their own. They wanted to be independent. Those countries have suffered a lot of loss. They have been conquested. It's been bad. It's been a rough process for these independent nations. And so this is like where we're at, 2026. We have a president in the United States of America who's saying, hey, you know what we did in the early 20th century when we moved off the gold standard? We need to go back to that. And honestly, no one ever thought that would actually be there would be a follow through, that there would be real action on that statement. It's always been this whole concept of like, oh, that would be great in the potential, whatever, but like it's all talk. Because that's what most people are about. And people who have been real, like John F. Kennedy, our former president, God rest his soul, when he tried to have the same rhetoric, he was the OG president, not the only one, but said, I'm going to end this fake system of a debt-based economy where all of our money is based off of nothing. We're just printing money. I'm going to end that. He was assassinated. What happened to Donald Trump when he was on the campaign trail 2024? He had an assassination attempt on his life. And so you have this history of people who are trying to go back to a right system, who are trying to correct a really corrupted process to have people not able to afford a home because the inflation is going all the way up sky high. and be able to afford basic goods to be enslaved to this imaginary system. People who have tried to buck that trend, there's always been a pushback from people who don't get in front of cameras. There's just people who are, perpetually on vacation, who own billions and trillions of dollars worth of assets. And so you have someone who's really like following through on that promise. And let's kind of get into what, like, there you go, snapshot, real deal. Here we are, 2026. What did Trump do that has, not because he's authored anything, he's not the author of anything, but he's enforced something that has trended towards a direction where there's a change, there's a shift, there's something that's coming. Okay, so I mentioned what fiat currency is. So cryptocurrency, again, it's a digital, virtual ones and zeros on a computer that uses cryptography for security. If something is encrypted, it means it needs a password. So my phone, in order to get into my phone, now it's requiring a face scan, but that's a form of cryptography because no one looks like me except for my brother Caleb, and he's gotten into my phone before, which is crazy. But the fact is that cryptography is a level of security that is very exciting because it means that people can't money launder, people can't just steal money. There is a process of security to make sure that the money is where it goes, and where it doesn't need to go, it doesn't need to go. So people like, all of your 20th century, 19th century Bonnie and Clydes, gangsters, all that process of physical cash being in your possession and you just deposit it in another bank and they don't ask any questions, those days are going to come to a close. Short of technology that fakes all of these systems and these cryptography systems from being able to pretend like you rightfully own that money, right? So cryptocurrency is that concept. It's an encrypted digital banking system, and the key is that when it was first created or introduced to the public, one, we don't really know who that person was. Mystery to this day. We'll get into some theories near the end. But it's decentralized, meaning the government cannot own it. Even if it tried, it can't. And let's get into why it can't own that. Because we're focusing on XRP today. Again, that's like the fifth leg of a race. And if you're jumping in on here, you're probably like, I can ask ChatGPT, but if you prompt ChatGPT, it's still not easy. You have to prompt it multiple times in order to get to a place where it's bringing it back down to elementary concepts. Okay, so at its core, it's a decentralized system that allows for secure online payments without the need for a bank. So banks were that middleman for transactions. You put money into a bank, what are they actually doing? It's not sitting in a vault. Historically, your money's being traded. Your money's being invested. And there is a small percentage chance that you could wake up one day and you don't have your money because, whoops, we lost it. But banks, institutions have this guarantee historically where they're like, well, I mean, we can't really lose it that much. There's only a small smidgen of a chance. And even if we did, all your money is tied into essentially this conveyor belt tentacle system. So you own your money, but technically, if you put your money into a bank, you don't own it. It's like this weird, awkward situation where, reading between the lines, you don't own your money as soon as you put it into the bank. But let alone we could get into fiat currency in itself, that you really don't own your own money anyway. Let's just get into a new standard. So XRP, it is a type of cryptocurrency. If you've heard of Bitcoin, it was the OG cryptocurrency. It's the very first cryptocurrency that was ever introduced to the public. Probably was the first one invented. And so XRP 25 years later, or roughly 15 to 20 years later, has come on the scene, and we'll get into like what it is and why you should invest in it as a security for the future. So, okay, there's a system called Swift, and Swift is the way of guaranteeing for the past like 50 years or so, 50, 60, 70 years, that the money that you are going to send to somebody, if you wanted to send money to somebody, it was like a way of knowing this goes to that person. So it's like writing on a piece of paper, this money is intended for John Smith. And that system, Swift as it was called in the United States, other countries had different names for it. It was not exactly the most secure thing. It was like writing your name on a piece of paper, and if someone else wrote their name on a piece of paper and the person who was supposed to be tracking that information, if they weren't paying attention, they might say, oh yeah, you signed your name twice. I'd be like, no, I signed my name once, and this guy over here who I don't know signed my name. That is a very simplified explanation of Swift, but that's how insecure it was. It's like you're able to essentially get away with fraud if you just had enough information of how to beat the system, how to cheat the system, how to make someone's signature essentially look like it was theirs and it wasn't. So that system ended, and in literally 3 months ago, this has been talked about for decades, actually, many years. There's public forums with financial institutions, the Security and Exchange Commission, which is the governing body that essentially polices. They're the financial police. They say, hey, there's financial improprieties over here. We're going to bring you to court, sue you, or refer you to the Department of Justice to criminally charge you with a financial crime. The SEC essentially is the police, the financial police. Now, for years, it's been talked about, we've got to change this system. And so late 2025, literally just November of 2025 of last year, it finally rolled out a new system. This system, not a really sexy name at all, was called ISO 222. So ISO 222 is the global standard for financial messaging that provides a common data-rich language for financial institutions to communicate with one another. It is currently the most significant transformation in the global banking system in over 40 years. In early 2026, the industry has passed its most critical milestone, the sunsetting of legacy Swift MT messages. Let's get in there. Of MT messages for payment instructions, making ISO 222 the primary standard for cross-border finance. So what does it actually do? Before ISO 222, banks used systems that cut off data, like the name of the ultimate sender or the purpose of the payment. Like if my name was John Rodriguez Emilio Gonzalez, XYZ, my name would be cut off. But then if someone else's name had the same middle names but a different last name, all of a sudden you might have an issue. I mean, it's not like these things happen often, but it required time. And when it takes time to do something, time is money. So a transaction would cost money just to send it. I'm not talking about $5, but I'm talking about investment monies that would be sent via wire transfer or just bigger sums of money. And so this was considered inefficient over time because you're having to essentially, like you're looking at something like your security and you're doing a double take, a triple take. As soon as you look the other direction, then the thief comes in and steals something. But then you choose to put a camera on that area, so you're not having to physically watch that. That's exactly, to some extent, ISO 222. ISO 222 is great because requires greater data. So instead of just my name, I got to give my address, to the recipient. I got to give like multiple, areas of identification so that it is 100% going to go to the right person. Crazy that's taken this long to do that, but big institutional things take a long time. It's not about one day making a decision. It took a lot of deliberation. It took a lot of time, finances, and resources in order for this to happen. Okay, so yeah, so now that we are here, let's kind of get into XRP. Again, we could get into 20 different subtopics before talking about XRP, but here you go. ISO 222. Why is that important regarding cryptocurrency? Well, ISO 222 is a system of data verification that in this new year of 2026, cryptocurrencies are starting to take shape in terms of being the means in which we do business. And so in order for that sort of system to be safe and effective, you have to have a system in place that's basically the referees that can say, yes, we are able to referee this game. We're not 95-year-old geriatric overweight referees, but we're athletic, just graduated college students who are refereeing this college game. That's exactly what ISO 222 does. It catches up to what's coming. And so for a long time, people have been speculating maybe crypto isn't going to happen. Maybe we're just going to continue on this path forever. And the writing has been on the wall because of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency, and we're going to get into why is this interesting, why is this a phenomenon. Because if you think about it, anything in life like a cell phone has value. Why? Because, well, the market says it does. It says this costs $1,000, but a year later, why do I feel like it doesn't have as much value? Because a newer version just came out. And so there's this unspoken rule that socially we all agree that something is what it is based on time and based on perception. And so everything about the economy, the stock market, is based on confidence, people's perception of if it has value or not. Very simple, But when it comes to this specific example with cryptocurrencies, it's the same exact ordeal. People 15 years ago, when it came to the very first cryptocurrency, was like, what is this? What are you trying to sell me? This is snake oil. And that's what most people thought. They thought Bitcoin, it sounds like a video game. It doesn't sound serious, to be completely honest. And also, it's not physically in front of you. People like physical cash that smells like paper. That smell, that money smell, it's very distinct. And so this whole concept of something being purely digital but not having the physical correlation with something that you could put in your hands is something that it's taken a long time for people to see, like, okay, that's basically the direction we're going. And we're already swiping plastic cards anyway, and something's leaving our account. The only time you use change is sometimes when you're at the gas station. You're getting a piece of gum or you got a toll booth. But other than that, you're not dealing with physical cash, for the most part. If you go to a foreign country, you might exchange that into foreign dollars because the little tienda on the corner doesn't accept a credit card or a debit card. But here we are in 2026. We're moving to a digital system. And so what is XRP? Let's get into that. I have some videos, okay? It's going to be fun. But for now, it's a lot of explanation because we have to understand what's happening, man. So what is XRP? So it's considered a bridge currency. So it is a currency like Bitcoin. But don't get lost in the sauce here, okay? Don't get lost on what is bridge currency. It's just a way to describe something. Like, I have brown hair. Brown is a description of my hair. Curly or straight hair. It's regarding texture. So bridge is something to describe the use case. If I have a phone and it's a flip phone, flip means it flips. So currency, bridge currency, it means it bridges. Let's get into what bridge means later. So it says it allows banks to exchange one currency for another, like US dollars to euro, in seconds without needing to keep pre-funded accounts in foreign countries. So if I wanted to, like prior to crypto and XRP being introduced to the human financial experience, if I wanted to exchange money into, like, just send it over to somebody, it would take a while. And we're talking about a lot of money, by the way. You can go to your current currency exchange and purchase, euro, and they'll take care of you. But we're talking about if you wanted to send money internationally. These are people who are, trying to make international purchases. That would be a process. You're talking about currency value to currency value, and sometimes a bank has to broker that exchange depending on the size. And so now XRP as a system is saying, okay, you're going to be able to make that process happen in a matter of milliseconds. Or seconds, rather. Not milliseconds, big seconds. So it allows banks to exchange one currency for another, like USD to euro, in seconds without needing to keep pre-funded accounts in foreign countries. Micropayments. Because the fees are so low, it's ideal for small transactions like tipping online creators or paying for individual news articles. Tokenization. The XRP ledger allows people to create digital versions of real-world assets such as gold, real estate, or stable coins like Ripple's own RLUSD. I haven't gotten a lot in this about tokenization, but tokenization is like saying, like, if I have a stick of butter and someone's like, I want to buy a fourth of your stick of butter. And you're like, cool, yeah, sure. I'll split this in a fourth, and then I will calculate how much a quarter of that butter costs. But in reality, usually butter is sold as one stick. So tokenization is like parceling out something into smaller bits and itemizing that value. And so, I mean, it doesn't work with like a car, but, if someone's like, hey, I want to buy this $30,000 Corvette, but in reality, I just only want to buy the wheel. It's like, okay, buddy, I mean, that doesn't happen. You can't do that to a car per se, but you can essentially stake an investment into anything. That's what they're doing nowadays. They're starting to tokenize houses, where you're saying, well, I don't want to own this property all outright. I don't want to buy this house, but my buddy's property is going to gain value in 10 years. I'm going to pay him a fractional percentage towards that house, and I'm a part owner of his house. It's kind of like the stock market. You own a portion of a company in terms of stocks. Well, this is the future of investment, where you can get a return on your investment, meaning something goes up in value, and you can sell them. You can get back what you've invested into it, and now it's not just a stock market; it's going to be assets, which is it's just like, wow, okay, new concept, but tokenization is that principle. So here we go. XRP ledgers allows people to create digital versions of real world assets such as gold, real estate, or stable coins, quote unquote, like Ripple's own RLUSD. Not going to get into stable coins on this pod. So current status as of January 2026. As of early 2026, XRP has seen a significant surge in interest following the launch of spot XRP, or ETFs, exchange traded funds, in late 2025. It is currently trading around $2.13. Having recently reached multi-year highs, its adoption has grown significantly among major financial institutions like Bank of America and American Express, which uses Ripple's technology for efficient global payments. So this is where people get confused, because it's like, okay, well, ISO 222 was based on like the central bank currencies that are not crypto. If you're not cryptocurrency, you're the fiat currency. Let's just kind of make two distinctions: fiat, or let's just say regular currency and cryptocurrency. Can we just say cryptocurrency, regular currency, right? And so XRP versus ISO 222, are they competitors? Like, we have a new system. Does everything just switch overnight? No, it doesn't. Me having $5 right now in my wallet doesn't mean it's going to evaporate and then be switched over to cryptos. It doesn't work that way. Imagine if you had a Mexican peso in your house, US dollar, and a euro just lined up on the table. It's not that any one of them would just disappear. It's that there's now a new player in town, a bar of gold, and now people are like, I want to do business with the bar of gold, that physical currency, because it has more value to me. The bar of gold is going to be worth a bar of gold, but honestly, this peso is going to be worth half of it in 5 years. So I'm going to go with the bar of gold. And that's what crypto is. It's right now an option for usage, and no one's talked about getting rid of currency quite yet, but there is probably going to be a shift, and there is going to be a shift where cryptocurrencies are really the way of doing business, and your fiat currencies eventually could get phased out, but right now they're not. Okay, that this is very early in the process. So, but let's get into ISO 222 and XRP. Are they competitors? So the relationship between XRP and ISO 222 is often misunderstood as a competition, but they are actually complementary technologies. ISO 222 is a messaging standard, or it's a language, and XRP is a settlement asset, or the money. Okay, settlement asset. We'll get into that, but let's break down these core differences via an amazing chart. Okay, so XRP, the company's name is Ripple, by the way. They're interchangeable. XRP is a digital asset and payment protocol. ISO 222 is a global standard for financial messaging. Okay, the language for ISO 222, it's a language. It defines how banks send data. XRP in Ripple is like a railway. It moves and settles value instantly across borders. Function, it replaces old Swift messaging. We already talked about that. And function of Ripple is it provides liquidity to settle payments without, well, I don't know what a nostro vostro account is, but I know what nosotros means. We, they, we, you accounts. Oh my. So owner is International Organization for Standardization. That's an actual organization that I believe it's tied in with the United Nations, and it's the centralized system that is really technically everything goes back to when it comes to all these payment reconciliations. All right, so the owner of XRP is an actual company called Ripple Labs. All right, now that being said, it can still be very conceptual and not really understood, but all you have to know is like that XRP is a cryptocurrency. Okay, the name of that company is called Ripple. All right, so ISO 222 is basically the stamp on the envelope, right? Or the contents of the envelope. But but XRP could in itself contents. I'm sorry, you're writing a letter. Okay, let's not get lost here. So ISO 222, it's like the letter itself. But XRP can really be the payment protocol. It can be like the envelope. It's what is doing the actual transaction, or you're sending that off to somebody. It can be the stamp. Okay, I'm getting lost in my own analogy, but they have distinctive different functions. And the thing with real value is XRP. It actually has value. It is the equivalent to a dollar bill. Dollar bill, y'all. It is what is considered a currency. ISO 222 is not currency at all. It just makes sure that if I'm going to hand this to you, that it is understood that this belongs to you. Why? Because you have a name, and your name is written on this envelope. Okay? Inside the envelope, if there's money, XRP is they call it the brokering money. So like if I have US dollars and I want to give you euros, XRP is what is, again, called a bridge currency. It's what's allowing that transaction to happen. Okay? All right, so let's get into what are CBDCs, because all this background information is needed in order to understand like stuff. And then we're going to watch some fun videos again, okay? So CBDC stands for Central Bank Digital Currency. Simply put, it's a digital version of a country's physical cash. There you go. It is the same thing. It's the old school money, but in digital form. All right. And this is where, if you were sort of leery about cryptos, understand, if you are a person, a human being, even if you're not a Christian, you haven't read the Bible, you don't want CBDCs. Okay. You don't want CBDC. It sounds stupid too when you're saying it. CBDC. You want crypto decentralized currencies. And we'll get into that, while we still have the freedom to talk about this. Because under the wrong government, they might say, we're only going by CBDC. We're not going to be able, you can't use any other currency, and we can track all your money. And also, you owe us this much in taxes. And also, like all of this surveillance is tied into CBDC. So central bank digital currency is a digital version of a country's physical cash, like a dollar, euro, or yen. It's issued and regulated directly by the nation's central bank. Again, central banks were created to police the fiat currency. Before we had a central bank, banks were decentralized. So you go to your local Wells Fargo, and everyone had deposits of gold, that were validating legal tender. The physical note of money was representative to the amount of gold that was at that institution. Central bank, again, we still have gold, but it's not tied in to our tender. It's like this robbery in real time. So CBDC is like, yeah, let's stay on that old system, and let's just digitize it. It's going to be great. So the rate that we've been going, the value of the US dollar has dropped so tremendously. A home that you could buy, 40 years ago, and there's a calculator here. Actually, I just want to go to that CPI calculator. CPI inflation calculator. Oh, yikes. This is a very small screen here. But let's just put it in perspective. Okay, so a home, this is all bringing context as to inflation, the downsides of our currency, all right, of our fiat system. Okay, well, so let's go to December 2025. If you wanted to buy a home, here, let's just look at here. Average cost of a home, December 2025 in Texas, because that's where I'm at. $340,000. Okay, $340K. All right, $340,000, the cost of an average home. Now, let's see. Like Euro's born. Oh man, we're really dating myself. So $144,000. Now the price of homes have inflated by that sort of principle of a house that's purchased at $340,000 today would have been priced at $144,000 then. I mean, that's not to say that's exact numbers, but you can see that's insanity. It's probably worse in terms of actual inflationary numbers for a home. But that's the same thing as what I would earn. Like if I'm earning $60,000, or let's do it this way. At the time I was born, if I was smart, I would have started investing when I was 0 years old. What am I thinking? December 1991, my mom's salary as a nurse was 70K in the year 2000. What would she be earning now? She'd be needing to earn $130,000 per inflationary index here in order for her money to be worth, like, cost of living, everything's calculated in. The same salary at $70,000 in the year 2000 is $130,000. That's insane. So when you have a central bank that is causing the money to be worth less, your living expenses increase, but your ability to have money set aside for vacations, for just every living thing that you want to do, anything, right? Buy a car, birthday party. I can't think of examples, okay, right now. But all of that would have been valued in sort of like an incremental process throughout time where you could still earn a similar wage and still have all these luxury items. Like today, people are not just earning $130,000 like just off the rip. Wages are still $18 an hour in Houston, Texas. Wages are still $12 an hour in certain states. Okay? And so cost of living has increased everywhere, and housing prices have 10x'd in the last 10 years. And we're not going to get into it, but President Trump is forcing corporations. Well, we don't know if he's going to force corporations to sell their inventory, but he's stopping corporations from purchasing homes going forward, at least. And so housing prices are going to start to drop quite a bit. And this is how you fight inflation. You don't allow systems to continue doing what they're doing unfettered. You do have to have the government step in to stop the bleeding when corporate America or corporate sectors start to affect markets artificially. Yeah, I mean, even if you're conservative, you believe in government intervention when it's for the goodwill of the people. It's just when you run away with that and you just start to do whatever you want. Now, it's not being anti-conservative, but anyone can be corrupted. You know, it's just about how much of that is an institutionalized, systematic process of government control versus being involved where it needs to be on a case-by-case basis. All right, so let's get into, kind of finishing off here with CBDCs. All right, so this is sort of the third wave of money. This is the response from the deep state or from central banks to try to keep money roped in. Now, they could have succeeded if people weren't investing so much into cryptos. It's like if I have a science project in school and I'm trying to build a race car, but I just stop halfway through and I'm like, well, I mean, one of those wooden race cars that you, I forgot what they're called. They were called derbies. And you would build a little race car out of a block of wood. I don't know why this is my example, but you set it aside because you're like, I just want to watch cartoons. And then some kid sees your design, is like, I'm going to design my race car, my derby car, and I'm actually going to finish the job. And they actually did, and they won the race, and you lost by default because you didn't finish your car. It had no wheels. This is the dilemma that CBDCs have. Is crypto was already so developed and it was already accepted by so many people that you have cryptos that are inevitable at this point. There is just no way. There's just too many people invested in a cryptocurrency, privatized, non-CBDC currencies, where the central banks can't really turn the corner and force their hand, short of enslaving every single person in the entire world, using their militaries to say, no, you're going to do money exchanges this way. It's not going to happen. Okay, so let's get into right here. So the CBDC, technically the central bank still stays in power. The Federal Reserve still stays in power under the CBDC system. Not to say the CBDCs won't still exist in the future, but will decentralized cryptos really continue to take the lead on transactions? As long as a government is not forcing and trying to take away people's rights, people can exchange chickens. I mean, honestly, the state of Florida just a month ago said that gold is legal tender. So you got a gold token, as long as it's enough to buy whatever you want and it's the right amount and it's the right value, you can use gold. Use your gold, and so that's where we find ourselves. Again, money is all about a mutual perceived value perception on what you're exchanging. And fiat currency has been the sole method of payment prior to the 20th century. You're trading with donkeys. You're trading with, rice. You're trading with salt in ancient Rome. Like, there's these different methodologies. So now the CBDCs, central bank would control it. Cryptocurrency. Remember, because of the cryptography, it is safe because there's this algorithmic protection over the money. So that's genius. You don't need somebody to broker and police the money and print it. That's amazing. Because that means that anyone who wants to corrupt it, I mean, short of buying all the money in the world, all the cryptos in the world, and trying to have it all for yourself, which, by the way, is impossible. There's too many tokenized assets within a crypto blockchain. The blockchain is essentially a wallet. It's like saying my wallet is the size of Texas and you're trying to take back all this money for yourself, one handful at a time. I mean, that's going to take you a million years. If you're just two hands, you're like, I just want all this money for myself. Impossible. It's impossible. Okay. So cryptos have this, decentralized cryptos have this beautiful aspect to it that on paper can't be hacked. It's still owned by a corporation, but it's like me buying a house. Okay, it's like me buying a treasure chest. And I said, okay, I'm going to lock in all these things with value in it. And I'm going to throw away the key and burn it and melt it so that I don't even have access to it. And that's really the concept of cryptos, is even the owners can't manipulate it. They can't say, I can technically just steal some over here and therefore I win at my own game that I created. It doesn't work that way. With CBDCs, you can still manipulate it. That's what they've been doing for years. They're saying, here's a treasure chest and everyone can pull from it, i.e. a bank. But in reality, I'm going to print 10 more treasure chests over here, and all of a sudden it doesn't have value. But we still have been holding on to this hamster wheel mindset that everything has value, because you can't do anything without money. So with cryptos, the perception of CBDCs might not be there. Again, as long as there's freedom to choose. This was a Chat Gemini prompt, and it says that cryptocurrencies are very volatile. I mean, it's true, but so is inflation with our central bank currencies. I already showed you the numbers from the CPI. Okay, those numbers are crazy. The inflation rate. So cryptocurrency is technically inflationary proof, but it should increase in value because more people are using that money to do exchanges. Okay. All right. So let's get into some videos for once. We're gonna see why and how and what is being said about cryptos from a governing standpoint. Here's a speech from 2024 where Trump is talking about Bitcoin.
States.
He's talking about cryptos at a 2024 summit.
Will be the crypto capital of the planet and the Bitcoin superpower of the world, and we'll get it done. If crypto is going to define the future, I want to be mined, minted, and made in the USA. It's going to be. It's not going to be made anywhere else. And if Bitcoin is going to the moon, as we say, it's going to the moon, I want America to be the nation that leads the way, and that's what's going to happen. I pledge to the Bitcoin community that the day I take the oath of office, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's anti-crypto crusade will be over. It will end. It'll be done. It'll be done. On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler and appoint a new SEC chairman. States will be the crypto capital of the planet and the
Well, there you go. Trump is being very candid there. There had not been rhetoric like this from President Biden previously. He was really hinting at CBDCs as being our form of payment system, and his language was a lot different. It was a very interesting time to witness the shift from a very anti-crypto president to a very pro-crypto president. And that rhetoric, when that came about, it really revolutionized everything, because what has happened since then in the U.S. market is you've had something called crypto reserves come into circulation at a national level. Okay, so we have a reserve of gold. The United States also has reserves of oil, and oil has been a corresponding sort of pseudo value as it relates to our money. Again, fiat currency means it's based on nothing. It's based on nothing that could essentially guarantee the value of that currency, except for people using that money. And so our money has been used for a global exchange when it comes to oil and other international transactions. US dollar is king when it comes to payment methods. And so now we're coming into a crypto season, or, we're coming into a brand new era, a dawning of a new era. What it's doing is it's saying, okay, US dollar, you're no longer going to be king, because we're going to start to use our own cryptocurrencies. So why is Trump so pro-crypto when he knows this is going to be the end to essentially America's dominance on an international level as we know it. This is actually insane. And this is the lack of foresight. I'm not getting into politics. This is just the lack of business acumen and foresight from the previous administration. Because Trump knows from a business perspective that one, U.S. is not going to stop being relevant because of the way he's handling these things. And we're going to watch a video that kind of explains how even Venezuela and that oil ties into all this. Yes, Venezuela was partially about oil. A lot of it was about oil, but it's not a corrupt system as you think it, okay? Because the U.S. has a certain obligation. I will just be completely candid. This is not being imperialist. This is not being someone who's just like very pro USA. But the USA, for some of the bad things that the CIA does to destabilize foreign governments, definitely don't. I'm not for that. But the U.S. is still a global governing power when it comes to taking care of the small guy. Small nations, they sometimes get bullied. And when there's bullies going on, sometimes you don't see it, but it happens. The U.S. will send its elite special forces to other nations and will destroy certain groups that are trying to infest and trying to have their way into taking over populations and governments. Case in point, Nigeria. That was just one aerial strike. But not every nation can just straight up drop an aerial strike on another nation. Like, if it does, sometimes it is messy. Case in point, India and Pakistan. They've had skirmishes at their border, but like hundreds and thousands of people dying because they don't like each other. The United States, it tends to, and I'm oversimplifying it, tends to not do that type of sloppiness when it comes to international intervention. It's very precise, very concise, and again, very simplified. But the U.S. does have sort of a big brother position, and it's because we spend so much money on our military. We have so much money on our surveillance, and if we said, okay, U.S., stop doing all this with your military, let's just all surrender all of our weapons, arms, nuclear weapons. Unfortunately, other countries would take advantage of that through trade. We'd probably have starved trade routes. All of a sudden, I'm not getting my Amazon order. All of a sudden, I'm not getting food on my front door. So, people are evil. International governments can be evil. Looking at you, China. And sometimes we're the bad guys too. So it's a very muddy situation when we talk about this. But I'm saying all that to say that what Trump did to focus on cryptocurrency is actually saving the world from, or at least buying us time. So repent, because the end is still coming. Like, there's still stuff that's coming down the pipeline. But in reality, without the move to cryptos, without Trump being president, we would have gotten into a situation where CBDCs would have taken over. All of your transactions would have been monitored. They were already starting to do that. They were going to sick the IRS on you. 80,000 agents were hired under Biden, and they were going to come to your door and say, hey, you had an $800 Zelle payment that you received from a one-off painting project that you did for your friend. Why is $200 of those dollars not sent to the federal government? They were really going to crack down and criminalize people for small transactions. If you don't believe me, look at the former Treasury Secretary, the FDIC chair. Like, you can do your own research. I can't give you all the receipts here in one sitting, but it was headed down a road of totalitarianism. It really was. It was laying the framework for it. And so Trump nipped that in the bud. And I get it. Cryptocurrencies, technically, all that transaction information is there. But under non-CBDC transactions, you have a lot more anonymity, meaning your money is not being surveilled by the government directly. They do not have direct taproot access to your banking information as they would have if CBDCs was without a fight implemented. They were going to get rid of Zelle and reinstitute a government-sponsored version of Zelle, essentially now tracking all of your digital transactions from one point to another. They were about to end different apps, like I believe Cash App. They were speculating all these things were going to come to an end. And what if scenarios are just that, what if scenarios, but the writing was on the wall. And this is about being alert and not paranoid, but you have to recognize what could have been and what isn't. So count your blessings, honestly, if you're the average, person, so you see Trump's position in terms of crypto, that's amazing. Let's go ahead and take a look at another video from Kim Clement. Now, this is 2011. This is 1 year before Bitcoin came to the scene.
Seeing this
in 2012, and I'm sorry, XRP coming to the scene, because XRP has been around for a while. But let's take a look at what Kim Clement. He was a prophet out of California, and he passed away, I believe, 2015, 2016. But he's describing XRP. So let's watch this.
This whole course, I'm seeing God doing it right now. But something starting with an X and it has a P in it is a very profound something that's going to be worth investing in. And I can't say the whole thing because I don't know it. But I had a dream and I saw an X, and I think there may have been a number and something else, and then P. Now, I'm only giving you what I prophetically hear. Otherwise, I could be accused of representing a company, which, of course, they could take me to court on that, but I'm not going to, that's what I'm hearing, and most people know I hear things by the Holy Spirit, and I just say it. And so it's a prophetic thing, this. But it's also giving signs to the people that it's the time.
Yes.
For the release of this new source of energy. I'm seeing this whole course, I'm seeing God.
All right. Well, there you go. So XRP being talked about, and you heard a little bit of language in there about investment. That is actually very key. There is that Kim Clement wasn't saying invest in it, because he really didn't really fully understand what he was saying, but there was language in there that was pointing towards wealth and prosperity being associated with it. So Ripple is the company name that owns XRP. XRP is really the currency itself, the crypto, but Ripple is a company. Like, my name is Joshua Grice, and I have money in my pocket. Like, my name isn't my money, right? So it's an umbrella, Ripple, RIPL. Let's just kind of read here. Ripple was established in 2012. So the company was founded by Jed McCaleb. That's nothing. I just put emphasis on McCaleb for no reason. But David Schwartz and Arthur Brito, with the goal of creating a more sustainable and efficient payment system. So back in 2012, they were like, oh, Swift is awful. Ripple Labs, which is known as Ripple, was formed in September 2012. The XRP ledger was launched in June 2012. So you have Kim Clement prophesying about a financial system with the letters X and P and something in the middle. That's amazing. He was definitely talking about this. So why would God even warn somebody through a prophet, and then years later it then be true, and then all of a sudden we're hearing about it years later? What is up with that? Well, it's because God cares about our safety, our provision, and he does care about everything. He cares about every detail. And yeah, it would be great if we could all hear God in such a very direct way all the time, same level of understanding, no questions asked. But the fact is we don't. And so you have to recognize that God does. So if you do, at least acknowledge that. Then it's like, is it worth your time, effort, and energy to then do something about what you hear? and I'll tell you, yes, you should definitely do something about it. I'm not going to say go and invest in this way, but look into it. Look into XRP. Look into it. Okay, here's another prophetic word. This guy's name is Brandon Big, and he also has a prophecy. This is more recent, I believe 2020, I think probably 2025, late 2025, because it's a reposted video. But he's talking about the value of XRP jumping up. So again, it's worth $2. I'm going to put in context of how much Bitcoin is worth. Okay, so you kind of understand. But like, let's take a look at this video from Brandon Brigg as he talks about the jump in value of XRP.
Overnight will double, they'll triple, and then I saw some of them go to $5 quickly, some of them go to $10, and he said some of the target of where they wanted to have this one was $150, and I saw the men talking. He said I saw the number 150. He said, you've asked me and asked me and asked me about investments. And he said, I'm going to tell you something that will increase like Apple one day. That will be a major investment in the end times. And he said, XRP will go from where it's at right now to $10,000 one day. It will be worth over $10,000 per XRP. And when he said that to me, I didn't even know what XRP was. And I was like, what is XRP? So I had to Google it. And I found out it was a cryptocurrency. Overnight will...
Okay. So sort of like an interesting take, an interesting video there. When you hear the word him on the second clip from Brandon, know that he was referring to God. God was telling him that in two separate dreams, two separate occasions, at least two separate times, that XRP, and this was earlier when it was first coming around, that it would jump in price to be around 10,000, which is not even probably the end of it. So here we are. We're at this crossroads. XRP has been said for years by like what they call financial gurus, people who have a lot of knowledge and wisdom on the idiosyncrasies of the day-to-day ups and downs of cryptos. And some of these people will advise you, hey, invest in this small coin over here. It's like saying, I own US dollar, euro, Mexican peso, and someone's like, hey, there's a new country that just formed over the coast of Florida. You should buy their currency because it's going to be worth so much one day, and then you can sell it. And I'd be like, okay, what is the country? And it's like, yeah, it's David Hasselhoff Island, and it's inhabited by 5 people, and they print their money off of a printer, and you just take it. And so that would be really ridiculous. I would never do that. But that's actually what's happening in crypto, is that anyone could really start their own cryptos, because again, money is based off of perceived value. So if I make a coin that's called the Josh coin, I say, hey, everybody's going to buy this coin. You should invest. People could. And there could be a small percentage of people that just do exchanges between the Josh coin. And so you have these schemes in place, and this is why people don't like cryptos, is because you could actually convince somebody that something's worth something, and then all of a sudden it's called pump and dump. You could just sell all of it at one day, but people paid you to invest into that crypto because you're the owner, and and all of a sudden it's gone. And that's called a rug pull, when someone just pulls a rug from under you. And so those situations do happen. It gives cryptos a bad name, but maybe there's going to be a crackdown on those situations where you have the right blend between institutional oversight and freedom and autonomy. And so Bitcoin was the first crypto. It's actually insane. Let me see. I thought I had... a video because I have a lot more content here. I'm not trying to look at all of these, but I wanted to show you the Venezuela oil thing because that's shocking. Okay, let's look at this chart. I'm kind of skipping ahead here, but let's look at this chart that shows you the rise of Bitcoin. Again, it's the OG original crypto. So all time, it hit an all-time high of $120,000 a Bitcoin. Again, XRP is valued at $2. All right, Brandon Big, Kim Clement, others too, but these were just more notable people, prophets of God, have said this thing is gonna skyrocket. It's gonna be a wise investment, Kim Clement said. And so Bitcoin was adapted over time by enough people. It just got around, the word got around, and they started wanting to do business. All of a sudden you could buy a pizza with Bitcoin. 10 years ago you could buy pizza in certain establishments. That was the rumor on the street. That was what was going on. But when was that taking place? That was taking place like 2017, 2018. Look at the price then. Jeez. I remember hearing about when I was getting my master's degree, and it was sitting right here. And people were talking about it. Oh man, if you just buy in right now, and I'm like, buy a 0.0001 Bitcoin? There's no way it's going to get higher. But here you go. 5 years later, 50K. And that's not even the end of it. I mean, crazy. So then you kind of skip ahead. 70K, 2024. Let's see here. All time. Yeah, it hit a max in July around 120, 118, and now it's sitting at about, this is a little old, but it's actually at 97 today. It started to push up again. And so you do have these highs and lows, but you're never going to have a point. You see this crash here? This is where people were freaking out because of such a drop, and some of that can be explained by external factors. You had a lot of pushback from the previous administration against cryptocurrencies, a lot of anti-crypto language. What was happening? People were like, sell, 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 sell. Oh, crap. Get out of here. Now, what has happened since Trump got in office? It has doubled. It's projected 150,000. So that's all correlation with President Trump being in office, being a pro-crypto president, ripping off the Band-Aid, saying, okay, U.S., we've dominated the global economy by using the U.S. dollar as a means to force people to use our currency. And now if we get into the technology that XRP has to reconcile cross-border payments instantaneously, then you don't necessarily need the U.S. dollar to broker these deals. You don't need people to buy U.S. currency. So writing's on the wall. Governments are like, hey, yeah, let's get away from the U.S. dollar. And that's been scary because that can cause hyperinflation. All of a sudden, the U.S. dollar is deemed non-authoritative. But if you switch it out for what's coming, the cryptocurrencies, you have a crypto reserve, you're future-proofing. Now, this is where we get into this is not insensitivity. This is just the way it is Venezuela, not just for the sake of the Venezuelan people, but for the sake of the world, honestly, not being facetious. I'm not like a MAGA guy in terms of like Trump can do no wrong, but I just want to get into this video here by Alexander Lorenzo, who's a financial guy on Instagram and TikTok, and he just really paints a really level-headed picture as to the benefits of what has taken place as a result of Venezuela. Here we go. Let's actually...
break past all-time high within the next like 60 to 90 days. And it looks like it's playing out. $97,000 Bitcoin. We're making our way to 100. And here's why. To make it simple for you, Trump captured the Venezuelan president and also took like $5 billion worth of oil and pumped it into the United States market. What people don't know is that Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves, okay? 303 billion barrels of crude oil. That's 17 to 20% of the world's proven oil reserves. We're talking about trillions of dollars. Literally $18 trillion USD of oil in Venezuela that now Trump has his hands all up in.
They have 50 million barrels of oil. They should take it. It's $5 billion.
Now, we also know that Trump has been coming at Jerome Powell. Why? Because this guy holds the key to the Federal Reserve. He's the Fed chair. And the Federal Reserve allows interest rate policy. When the interest rates drop, that means that there's more money flowing into the United States economy, and that means the stock market goes up and crypto goes up. When he increases interest rates, the exact opposite effect happens. Liquidity tightens and the market goes down. Long story short, interest rates hold the key to the market, and this guy has that key. As you can see, Trump just comes at him specifically, calling him a crook, a jerk, all these things. And he's just essentially threatening him from every angle, even suing him for spending too much money on the Federal Reserve building. They were building out the building. He spent too much money, and Trump had found legal grounds to sue him from a different angle. He's just hitting him from every angle, putting pressure on Jerome Powell. Now, this is really important because according to the projection material by the Federal Reserve, they're claiming that they're going to stay at 3.4 in 2026. If you look at the top of the actual thing, you can see it's 2026. This is 3.4. We're currently sitting at 3.5 to 3.75. So what they're saying is they're hardly going to cut interest rates. They're not going to cut interest rates in 2026. They're going to try to keep it the same or do very minimal cuts. So that means no new liquidity for the stock markets and crypto. That's not what we want. We want them to cut interest rates. So Trump is not having it, right? Look what he's doing. Now, the main reason the Federal Reserve is not cutting interest rates is because currently, right now, inflation's at 2.7%. So the Federal Reserve has a goal to get inflation down to 2%. They don't want it at 2.7. They want it at 2. And see, the thing is, if they cut interest rates, which was what we want, inflation should go up, which is the exact opposite of their goals. They want inflation to go down to 2%. Then they'll consider cutting. Now you understand why Trump attacking Venezuela's president was such a 3D chess play. This guy is playing on another dimension because the CPI, which is the indicator for inflation, tracks the average price of a basket of everyday goods like food, gas, rent, et cetera, et cetera. Each item is weighted based on how much, people spend on it. So essentially, this is how they calculate inflation. But the thing is, oil used for everything. So when you farm, oil is used for the tractor. It's used to deliver it to the actual, Walmart. It's used for literally everything. So if you drop the price of oil, you drop the price of all goods. If you drop the price of all goods, you're dropping the exact metric that used to calculate inflation. You're effectively dropping inflation. And Trump has his hands on $5 billion worth of oil and probably much, much more that he's pumping into the United States economy to drop the price of oil. If you have an increased supply of something, the price of it drops. There's more of it in circulation. The price of it drops. That price dropping will drop the CPI inflation metric. And that inflation metric going to 2% will allow the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates, which will pump money into our economy and send stocks and crypto to the moon. People are anticipating that. This is why Bitcoin's about to go to $150,000 probably in the next 60 to 90 days. I've repeatedly made the claim that Bitcoin's going to break past all-time high within the next 60 to 90 days. And it looks like it's playing out. $97,000 Bitcoin. We're making our way to 100. And here's why. To make it simple.
All right. So very, very telling. So why is it this big chess move? It's because there was a lot of risk in Trump just going in and, taking Nicolas Maduro, which was the sitting dictator president of Venezuela. Now, for one country to do that to another, if we did that to the United Kingdom, we stole the King of England, that would be insane. But to be completely frank with you, not all countries are equal. And it's not because all people aren't equal. It's because when you have a ruling government that starves its people, that systematically brainwashes its people, you are not equal. And so people will call Trump a dictator, and they really don't know what a dictator is. They really don't understand what happens in the lives of people who are actually under real dictatorships. Trump has mean tweets. Some people say he's in Epstein files. Like, that'll live another day. Okay, I want justice everywhere. But in this particular instance, where we're at in a slice of time, temporal time, what Trump did objectively in Venezuela is good. Now, if that gets in the hands of a wrong sitting U.S. president, then all of a sudden you can install somebody in Venezuela, which there's someone who's going to be installed who could cause more harm to the people. But is that going to happen? Not in the immediate future. The Venezuelan people are very excited. Who they're electing is going to, who is going to be in position of power, I'm forgetting her name, the new president of Venezuela, is going to be really good for the nation of Venezuela. Now, the U.S. is going to take over oil production because that industry locally is absolutely cooked. There is no infrastructure. It was federalized by Hugo Chavez, who's the former president of Venezuela prior to Nicolas Maduro taking office. It was from one regime to another, and the people have suffered for it. People eating zoo animals, like people eating trash. Like, that's the harsh reality of Venezuela. And I don't know why people are talking about the reality of socialism to that degree, but it was a real hellscape. And so wealth and prosperity will return. They will still maintain sovereignty as a nation. The oil deposits, yes, it's in the nation of Venezuela, but you need the United States to help bridge the gap between a really failed system to being wealthy and prosperous as it was before. It was the number one wealthiest nation in all of South America prior to Hugo Chavez taking control. And so now here you are, U.S. owning that production process. Chevron is one of the U.S. companies that are still there. And so that's been there since the dictator days. The U.S. is going to be over that production. We're going to get a lot of that oil. I don't understand how some of that transpired in terms of those negotiations, but that's the reality. And so as a result, the U.S. economy is about to skyrocket in terms of oil being a part of a reserve, being something that we're able to trade and sell to the world. Oil is like gold in terms of value. And so the U.S. now maintains a healthy control or balance in the world, which is being competed against by Russia, Ukraine, China, and OPEC nations, oil-producing nations in the Middle East, for oil production dominance. When you restrict the supply of oil, which is what Russia was doing, which is what OPEC nations, Saudi Arabia was doing, you can force a country to do things that they wouldn't do otherwise, give you specific benefits on trade deals, concede security agreements, give you secrets to their technology and military, secrets. Certain whatever you can make a country bend to your will, and that's what was happening in Western Europe in the last couple of years. Because Russia and that dependency on that production was causing a lot of inflated economies. Some people just don't pay attention, but Germany, the United Kingdom, France were all suffering, and it's because of the Ukraine-Russian war, and it's all because of oil. And we can get into so much there, but I'm trying to stay at least semi-focused to say this, is that the invasion of Venezuela, like Alexander Lorenzo had articulated very well, our inflation is actually going to drop. Our inflation rate is going to drop, and the Federal Reserve is going to have no choice but to drop interest rates, and then inflation will actually not be impacted. As he stated, lower inflation rates lower interest rates produce higher inflation, but not in this case. We're in a new era where the market factors that have completely depleted the American dream can come back. It can come back, and I do believe it will come back. So, will XRP follow the trend of Bitcoin? I believe so. XRP is better than Bitcoin. And let me tell you why. Because Bitcoin uses a process called mining. Yes, okay, digital mining. What is this, a video game? All right. So every crypto has value because there's a limited supply, okay? Now, because that's how value is created. Value perception is based on limited supply, and that goes for cryptocurrencies as well. And so that's what you have with cryptos, is that there's technically a limited supply, but not an amount that you can really reach within a few lifetimes, right? So this is let's just break this down, and this is our last article because it's an hour and a half here. Unlike Bitcoin, which uses mining to create new coins and verify transactions, XRP uses a consensus mechanism. There's no mining, so there's 100 billion XRP tokens that are quote unquote pre-mined, created at once when the network launched in 2012. Okay, so Bitcoin has this other process called mining. So people use servers or heavy computers to unlock a code that is ever evolving. It's like, oh man, I mean, it's like a Rubik's Cube that doesn't stop spinning, but it doesn't just stop spinning. It grows in size, and when it grows in size, you have to try to complete a portion of that Rubik's Cube as it grows. And so as you complete it, you get money for it. You're like, yay, I just spent an hour trying to figure out this portion of the Rubik's Cube, and so I just did. So I'm going to get paid for my labor. I can live to eat bread. I can live to live another day, pay for my rent with the money I just received from solving a Rubik's Cube. I know it sounds crazy, but people work a 9-to-5 job, and that itself can be crazy depending on your line of work. You know, some jobs are silly. And so there is a monetary exchange for a process. So let's kind of see here. So yeah, so all 100 billion were mined. Now, Bitcoin mining is a process which Bitcoins are entered into circulation, and the network's decentralized ledger or the blockchain is secured and updated. So because cryptos don't have centralized authorities, there's a global network of computers to verify transactions and prevent fraud. So Bitcoin is still a cryptocurrency, but it's like almost considered like old tech. Like without people bit mining or mining, then you almost have a stalemated system. But the fact of the matter is, people are always going to mine. Actually, even Eric Trump, there's a video of him, and he's in a server farm in Texas, and he's like, here we are mining crypto. Very interesting, right? So for mining, you get paid, and it's called proof of work. Proof of work. Show us your work. There's a cryptographic puzzle, and they solve this mathematic problem, and they need to find a specific 64-digital hexadecimal number called a hash. And the difficulty of this puzzle ensures that miners must expend significant energy and work to find the solution. This makes it extremely difficult and expensive for anyone to attack the network or alter previous transactions. So the first miner to find the correct hash broadcasts it to the network. Once the other nodes verify it, the block is added to the chain, and the miner is rewarded with newly minted bitcoins and transaction fees. Wow. Okay, and here's an example. Imagine a giant notebook that lists every Bitcoin transaction ever made. Since there's no bank of Bitcoin to manage the book, the world relies on thousands of volunteers or miners to keep it updated. Every 10 minutes, a group of new transactions or a block needs to be added to the notebook. Miners compete to be the one who officially writes down that page. Ooh, I mean, it's just interesting. I mean, what is it? It's a major prize. It says the miner wins the round. The Bitcoin network automatically gives them some brand new Bitcoin. I mean, it says it's currently 3.125 Bitcoin. I mean, guys, that's roughly $300,000, right? I don't know if that's currently how much you get for mining and winning that block. But so let's just kind of summarize this. Cryptocurrencies are here. XRP is about to shoot to the moon. whether you think it's going to happen in 5 days or 5 years, it's probably in the next 2 years or less. XRP is been, and I didn't even get into that. XRP has been adopted by multiple nations. Meaning there are dozens and dozens and dozens of nations worldwide that are adopting XRP as one of its reserve currencies, Bitcoin being another one, Solana. There's others. I'm not a crypto expert, right? But XRP is going to be used as the ledger currency or the bridge currency. Again, what is that? We already talked about it, but it's the ability to make cross-border payments and essentially broker transactions. So when you have this massive adaptation and it's being used and it's being recognized as a legitimate process. It had a battle for 5 years with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission that was suing them, and not going to get into that at all. We have no time. It is on the edge. It's on the other side of obscurity, on uncertainty. So we see here, early 2026, Bitcoin, XRP, they're the most significant cryptos. They have different roles. Bitcoin is often viewed as digital gold or a store of value. XRP is seen as digital cash for banking sector. I don't put a gold bar in my pocket. A gold bar stays in a safe because I know in 5 years I could sell that gold and I could get money for it. Yes, so people were paying pizza in Bitcoin, but it took them. It's not an instantaneous transfer. Let me just tell you that. It takes like 10 minutes to 60 minutes. And that's why people are can't use Bitcoin like XRP, because XRP can be settled instantaneously. Type of deal. So XRP can be spent at small time merchants, hotel travels, gift cards, whatever brands. I don't know why it says Gucci, but like as an example. There's no fees, basically. 1 cent. Imagine me, sending money over to a buddy in US dollars. It's going to cost like 20 cents to send it, but less than a penny with XRP. That's not bad. I mean, that's basically nothing. But Bitcoin, it can cost you some money to do a transfer. You might buy a $5 latte. People were doing it out of novelty, but then that latte could cost you $10 because the transaction fees. So people are using Bitcoin like long-term savings because of the value growth, and XRP more like daily transactions. But this is the direction that XRP is going in. It's going to shoot up in value. Now, what does that then mean as a currency exchange, or what people are currently using it as? Well, cryptocurrencies have this value compared to fiat. Now, you get rid of fiat currency, then what's the value of these Bitcoins? I mean, we're going into the future. People theorize this all the time about what does this mean for the economy? What does this mean for the future, value perception, overall economic development? And so we're not quite there yet. All I'm saying is we're at the early stages. So if you feel like you're on the late end and you don't know enough to jump into cryptos, I would say, no, go ahead for it. Go ahead. Try. Go ahead and invest. Buy 10 coins. We're going to end this last video and call it a night. But it's sort of another prophecy. I meant to play it earlier regarding future values of crypto.
How many XRP will you need to hold to be essentially considered wealthy, to be considered rich? Like, what will you need to hold? There's a lot of people out there that say 1,000 XRP, 5,000 XRP. But I've been in the game a long time. And I've been in since XRP was around 7 cents. So talking to somebody a long time ago. The conversation came up, how many XRP will people need to hold to be wealthy? And the conversation pretty much went like this. When the reset happens and XRP, the XRPL, is carrying the bulk of all currency transfers throughout the world, the average human will only need to hold about 10 XRP, 10, to be a millionaire. And at that point in time, being able to hold one will be extremely rare. Only real wealthy people will be able to hold. So once the reason.
So, I mean, that could be a real extrapolation and in whatever, but meaning it's a privately interpreted thing. He's not saying this, thus saith the Lord, or something prophetic, but you get the principle there. Is like value will fluctuate on XRP exponentially, and the scale and the timing of that is going to be sooner than later. We're not going to be 10, 20 years in the future. So I would say buy XRP, hold on to it, and when it's time, don't feel remorse or regret, sell it. XRP is going to be something that is going to change the way in which people are able to secure wealth and are able to do business, and all of these things are going to affect each other in a very positive way. And so it's very exciting. If you choose XRP, if you choose Bitcoin, if you choose any cryptos, I mean, I wouldn't get into a rabbit hole where you're getting they call it meme coin, something that's has really no proven value, but you look into it, it's just owned by a guy in a basement. I wouldn't do that. But definitely look into the world of investing and just get acclimated. And there was another word by Brandon Bigg where he talks about how in reality, all of these things about cryptos, it's going to be used as a system of control eventually. I'm talking about future, because it gets in the wrong hands. You can try to hijack any of these systems, and if it's not the CBDC process, you can try to institutionalize, federalize, force people to be monitored and surveilled, because it's not purely anonymous like a US dollar and physical cash. But it is going to be a tool in the time being. And again, we don't know all the answers, but we do know what's in front of us. And so I would say stay encouraged and just do your research, do your due diligence, and be very smart and ask the Lord for wisdom. All right. Well, this has been Fight Like Heaven News. Have a wonderful rest of your night.